The Dean J. Television Show. Hosted by Dean Robinson. And now, Dean Robinson.
Oh, hi, I'm Dean Robinson, SummitCityNoise.com. I was just looking over some old memories from the old Bishop Luers yearbook, a.k.a. 1981. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a Bishop Luers High School graduate, class of 1984, so recently I got to thinking about comedian Bill Cosby. And that got me to thinking about, back in 1981, Bishop Luers High School brought Bill Cosby to town. They had that mug doing a concert at Memorial Coliseum. It's all here in the a.k.a. 1981. Page 23, Bill Cosby. How do you raise $100,000 for Catholic education these days? Bingo? Hardly. Have a raffle. We tried that already. Bring to Fort Wayne a big-name star and invite everyone in the city? That's just what happened in 1981. And they called it LuersKnight #1. Bill Cosby at the Coliseum. Back in 1981, Bill Cosby still had his squeaky clean image intact. But according to these headlines nowadays, that's when Bill Cosby supposedly was up to some of his most devious work. That's not to insult Bishop Luers or the Fort Wayne South Bend Diocese. My entire family went to that Bill Cosby concert back in 1981, and we had a blast. He told all that G-rated humor. Flash forward a few decades, and Bill Cosby is not the celebrated figure he was back in 1981 when Bishop Luers brought in Bill Cosby to the Memorial Coliseum. It's about time I give some love to Jeff Landis, the Access Fort Wayne television producer who's been producing television shows like The Jeff Landis Show since the early 1990s. I first met Jeff Landis probably back in 1995 when I was the TV radio editor at the Journal-Gazette newspaper. I put together the TV Journal. I put Jeff Landis in that mug. I produced a column called Remote Controller in which I talked to local celebrities about what they were watching on television. Jeff Landis was one of those remote controllers. After that, Jeff Landis had me on his television show in 1995. We were both young and pretty back then. I'm still a Jeff Landis fan, and we've been friends since the 90s. Some of my fondest television memories about Jeff Landis have to do with Boyz II Men. Jeff used to sing these Boyz II Men songs on his television show all the time. He absolutely loves Boyz II Men. If Fort Wayne has a biggest Boyz II Men fan, his name is Jeff Landis. Jeff Landis has been trying to land an interview with Boyz II Men for I don't know how long. It seems like now that dream should come true. Boyz II Men is coming to Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana on Sunday, June 18th. The group is on tour with New Kids on the Block and Paula Abdul. They're calling it the Total Package Tour. This June 18th concert with Boyz II Men, Paula Abdul, and New Kids on the Block is the perfect opportunity for Jeff Landis to interview Boyz II Men. Boyz II Men is one of these groups that has won every music award under the sun. When Boyz II Men or any of these major artists go on stage to receive their award, well, sometimes they tend to forget certain people, in their thank yous. But they never forget to thank God and their fans. Boyz II Men has no bigger fan in Fort Wayne than Jeff Landis. So for all you Jeff Landis fans out there who just happen to be Boyz II Men fans, maybe you should get on the message boards. Maybe you should get on Twitter, Facebook, social media, talking about Jeff Landis and how great it would be for Jeff Landis to interview Boyz II Men. I'm Dean Robinson, and this is Summit City Noise News. In public-private partnership news, Indiana Tech University has withdrawn its proposal for building an athletic complex at the World War I Memorial Park in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Indiana Tech's proposed construction on Memorial Park grounds met opposition from Fort Wayne citizens. The proposed construction project met no opposition from Fort Wayne Mayor Tom Henry. I happen to think, and my staff happens to think, that it's a move in the right direction, Mayor Henry told Wayne TV last week. Wayne TV reports, City leaders said the overall response to the plan has been positive. Apparently, Fort Wayne city leaders are full of shit. In national news, President Donald Trump fired FBI Director James Comey for his handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation in 2016. President Trump previously praised Comey for how he handled the Hillary Clinton email investigation. James Comey really does deserve to be fired for how he handled the Clinton email investigation, but it looks bad when President Trump fires the guy for the same reason he praised him. And why did President Obama let James Comey so publicly fumble the investigation and promote it so badly? The James Comey firing line distracts attention from more pressing matters that receive less treatment from U.S. commercial news and influential comedians. NBC News reports President Donald Trump has approved a plan to arm the Syrian Kurdish militia. Chief Pentagon spokesman Dana White says the Syrian Democratic Force, partnered with enabling support from U.S. and coalition forces, are the only force on the ground that can successfully seize Raqqa in the near future. In March, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson traveled to Turkey to meet with President Erdogan, who sees the Syrian Democratic Force as terrorists. The Kurdish Project reports the Syrian Democratic Force is led by the Kurdish People's Protection Units, also known as the YPG. NBC says Erdogan sees the YPG as terrorists and equivalent to PKK Kurdish separatists who are blamed for attacks inside Turkey. The news about the U.S. plan to arm Syrian Kurds comes as the Trump administration mulls sending as many as 5,000 more troops to Afghanistan. The U.S. war in Afghanistan has been killing people since 2001. President Trump will send more people to kill and die in Afghanistan. In the U.S. proxy war in Syria, President Trump supports the anti-government militia called the Syrian Democratic Force, just like President Obama supported the anti-government militia called the Free Syrian Army. The Free Syrian Army gave weapons it received from the United States to a militia group called Al-Nusra. Al-Nusra is considered a terrorist group by the United States of America. Even though their names sound great by American standards for freedom and democracy, the Free Syrian Army and the Syrian Democratic Forces, also known as the YPG, are anti-government militias paid by the Pentagon for killing people in Syria. People who watch too many Star Wars movies tend to believe rebels are always the good guys. People who wave the Confederate flag tend to believe rebels are always the good guys. Presidents who send soldiers to kill people in Syria tend to believe rebels are always the good guys. Keep that in mind as American commercial news and influential comedians promote the F.B.I. Jim Comey Roast, brought to you by the Washington, D.C.
Understanding Russian influence on government elections in the United States of America requires understanding Russia Today, the Moscow-based television news network known as RT. RT is distributed in various languages via cable, satellite, and the internet, with a daily audience measured in millions. Russia Today allows American reporters, activists, academics, celebrities, and politicians to criticize American society and politics to degrees rarely allowed by American commercial news networks. ABC News reporter Lauren Lister hosted a global finance and economics program on Russia Today called Capital Accounts. Russia Today employs American news personalities, including former CNN host Larry King and ex-MSNBC host Ed Schultz. Austin, Texas-based radio show host Alex Jones occasionally appears as a guest on The Kaiser Report, hosted by U.S. citizen Max Kaiser on RT. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange hosted The Julian Assange Show on RT. RT is financed by the Kremlin. The Kremlin is the fortress in Moscow that houses the Russian government. Mikhail Lesson founded Russia Today in 2005 while serving as Russian President Vladimir Putin's mass media relations advisor. Russia Today says Lesson is credited with the idea of establishing RT as an English-language television network to convey Russian positions to the international audience. It's been a long time since I was scared by the word propaganda. We need to promote Russia internationally. Otherwise, we'd just look like roaring bears on the prowl, Lesson said. Russia's President Vladimir Putin talks about RT to RT on RT. When we designed this project back in 2005, we intended introducing another strong player on the world scene, a player that wouldn't just provide an unbiased coverage of the events in Russia, but also try to break the Anglo-Saxon monopoly on the global information streams. And it seems to me that you're succeeding in this job. On January 25th, 2017, the Wall Street Journal says most TV networks seek to be paid fees in return for their channels. RT has instead opted to pay for its network to be carried by major U.S. operators, including the nation's largest cable company, Comcast Corp., satellite TV operator Dish Network Corp., and Charter Communications Inc., the second largest cable company. The recent U.S. intelligence assessment alluded to this more unusual business practice. RT has offices and studios in Moscow, New York, Miami, Los Angeles, and the Washington, D.C. On August 1st, 2014, Radio Free Europe reports, U.S. Senator Roger Wicker has asked the Justice Department to investigate whether Mikhail Lesson, Russian President Vladimir Putin's former press minister, violated the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or laundered money by acquiring multi-million-dollar homes in the Los Angeles area. Following his government service, Mr. Lesson moved his immediate family to Los Angeles, California, where he acquired multiple residences at a cost of over $28 million. Wicker wrote that a Russian public servant could have amassed the considerable funds required to acquire and maintain these assets raises serious questions. These include a 13,000 square foot Beverly Hills home purchased in August 2011 for $13.8 million by Dastel Corporation, where Lesson's son, Anton Lesson, served as a corporate officer. Business Insider says since 2013, Lesson's son, Anton Lesson, has produced 4 major Hollywood movies with stars including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, and Woody Allen. Radio Free Europe says Dastel Corporation also purchased a 10,600 square foot Brentwood home for $9 million in 2012. By the way, the Los Angeles coroner says Breitbart News founder Andrew James Breitbart died March 1st, 2012, after collapsing on February 29th at 148 South Barrington Avenue in Brentwood, Los Angeles. 148 South Barrington Avenue is the address for the Brentwood Restaurant and Lounge, located less than 2 miles from the Brentwood home owned by Mikhail Lesson. On Saturday, November 7, 2015, the Washington Times reports a prominent Russian millionaire with high-level ties to President Vladimir Putin was found dead inside a Washington, D.C. hotel. Mikhail Lesson, 57, the former head of media affairs for the Russian government, who's been accused of curtailing the country's press freedoms, had been staying at the Hotel DuPont, where he was found Thursday. Russia Today reported on its website that Lesson died of a heart attack, and the state news agency, RIA Novosti, cites a family member giving the same cause of death. The Daily Mail UK, November 12, 2015. The shock death has created an eve of speculation in Moscow that it is related to previous reports that Lesson was helping the FBI and could be murder. Some 16 months earlier, U.S. Senator Roger Wicker had called for a Justice Department probe into whether Lesson was engaged in money laundering. The Daily Beast, March 10, 2016. An ex-aide to Russian President Vladimir Putin did not die of a heart attack in a Washington, D.C. hotel room last year, as was previously reported, but from blunt force injuries of the head, as well as the neck, torso, upper extremities, and lower extremities, a spokesperson with the D.C. Medical Examiner's Office told the Daily Beast. Almost immediately after Lesson's body was discovered in November 2015, the broadcasting outfit RT, widely seen as a Kremlin mouthpiece, reported that Lesson died of a heart attack, citing an unnamed family member. The mystery surrounding Lesson's death had fueled speculation that Lesson was murdered after coming to Washington to cut a deal with the FBI. On October 28, 2016, NPR reports, nearly a year after former Russian press minister and Kremlin insider Mikhail Lesson was found dead in a downtown hotel in Washington, D.C., U.S. authorities have ruled his death an accident and closed the case. While the announcement from the U.S. Attorney's Office is unlikely to put such conspiracy theories completely to rest, the findings appear to be straightforward. The statement read, "Based on evidence gathered during the investigation, Mr. Lesson, 57, entered his room at the DuPont Circle Hotel for the final time at about 10:48 a.m. on Wednesday, November 4, 2015, after days of excessive consumption of alcohol. Based on the evidence, including video footage and witness interviews, Mr. Lesson entered his hotel room on the morning of Wednesday, November 4, 2015, after days of excessive consumption of alcohol and sustained the injuries that resulted in his death while alone in his hotel room. He was found dead late on Thursday morning, November 5, 2015. Mikhail Lesson created the television news network Russia Today, also known as RT, to be a pro-Russia propaganda outlet financed by the Russian government. Instead of charging a fee to carry RT, the Russian government pays Comcast Universal NBC TV, Dish Network, and Charter Communications to broadcast Russia Today on the biggest cable and satellite television systems in the United States. Before his death in November 2015, Lesson faced possible FBI scrutiny for alleged money laundering through real estate purchases in California, including a $13.8 million home for his Hollywood movie-producing son. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Mikhail Lesson died by accident from blunt force injuries of the head in the Washington, D.C. Russia Today operates a broadcast studio in the Washington, D.C. Russia Today awards U.S. personalities like Alex Jones and Larry King the privilege to criticize American politics and values with fewer limitations than U.S. commercial news corporations. Russia Today founder Mikhail Lesson paid for that privilege with his life in the Washington, D.C. Understanding Russian influence on U.S. politics relies upon accepting the fact that RT remains right at home in the Washington, D.C. That's the life lesson from Mikhail Lesson.
Intelligent people have complained to me about how they can't understand my videos. Now recently, I've had two people tell me that they don't know how I feel about these certain issues after they watch my videos. They're not learning how I feel about this stuff. People want to know how I feel about these social and political issues. Apparently, all of these facts are getting in the way of people understanding how I feel about this stuff. In a way, maybe that means I'm a better journalist than previously thought. That said, here's how I feel about Donald Trump as President of the United States of America. I mostly feel annoyed by the presidency of Donald Trump, but it's really not Donald Trump who annoys me most. I'm annoyed by the fact that people have to believe in Donald Trump. I'm annoyed by the fact that people, the adults, the grown folk, still believe that political celebrities are heroes worth worshiping. I can tolerate this nonsense from the kids and young people. They don't know any better. People my age, old school, they should know better by now. I'm mostly annoyed by the notion that poor and working class Republican Christians believe a casino boss and reality TV star can represent them. The problem with believing a U.S. president represents citizens is that the U.S. president does not represent citizens. That's why we have a House of Representatives. The president is the chief executive of the departments and agencies of the United States of America. The president's job is to execute the laws and some people when necessary. The president does not represent the people. The president has 3 standards to bear in this order. 1, maintain the union. 2, avoid a financial depression. 3, delay another nuclear conflict every day. As long as Donald Trump bears those 3 standards, the American way will go right about its business, no questions asked. If you saw the movie Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, you heard politicians arguing about disputes over trade routes. If you read the book Dune by Frank Herbert, you understand that controlling petroleum or spice in a desert cascades into control over the known connected universe. If you watch the NBC TV show Dracula, you know the Order of the Dragon controls planet Earth by controlling the petroleum industry. In real life, I call them the Lords of Energy, Finance, and Thought on planet Earth. The Lords of Energy, Finance, and Thought on planet Earth influence President Trump's executive actions. President Trump's Secretary of State is Rex Tillerson. Rex Tillerson previously served as the CEO of ExxonMobil, one of the largest petroleum companies in the world. ExxonMobil is among the Lords of Energy on planet Earth. President Trump's Secretary of the Treasury is Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin was a partner at Goldman Sachs. Mnuchin was an investment professional at Soros Fund Management, which is owned by billionaire Democratic Party donor and fundraiser George Soros. When billionaire Republican Party donor and fundraiser Sheldon Adelson invited the Republican Jewish Coalition to his Las Vegas Venetian hotel in February, President Trump sent Boris Epshteyn to the event to represent the White House. Goldman Sachs, George Soros, and Sheldon Adelson are among the Lords of Finance on planet Earth. Steve Mnuchin founded Dune Capital in 2004 to pump $500 million into 20th Century Fox films like Avatar, The X-Men, and The Devil Wears Prada. Mnuchin served as executive producer on several Warner Brothers movies, including American Sniper, Batman vs. Superman, The Lego Movie, Suicide Squad, and about 30 other major movies. Time Warner, News Corp, National Amusements, Disney, Comcast Universal, and Sony are among the Lords of Thought on planet Earth. Universal Music, Warner Music Group, and Sony Music serve as the musical chairs among the Lords of Thought. The Lords of Thought produce and distribute music and entertainment programming to shape local cultures and exert influence on human behavior. The Lords of Thought produce and distribute news opinion programs to drive consumer activity and establish social consent among citizens being governed. U.S. wars and conflicts in the Middle East and Africa maintain chaos that the Lords of Petroleum and Finance use to acquire natural resources and control transport routes. The President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces, possessing ultimate authority. President Trump continues combat campaigns in Africa and the Middle East that were conducted by President Obama and 7 presidents before him. 8 if you count President Ford. U.S. military action is directly related to the global aims and goals of the Lords of Energy, Finance, and Thought on planet Earth. The Lords of Energy, Finance, and Thought on planet Earth use government institutions to protect their interests. They employ corporations to produce profits. President Trump presides over the departments and agencies of the United States of America in Washington, D.C. Some people say the D.C. stands for death cult. The president can do almost whatever he wants when it comes to running the Washington, D.C., as long as he maintains these 3 very important standards. 1, maintain the union. 2, avoid a financial depression. And 3, delay another nuclear conflict every day. As long as President Trump properly dances those steps, the American way will go right about its business. Because the lords of energy, finance, and thought own the musical chairs. Maybe people celebrate politicians as heroes because deep down they realize a hero is an idol, and an idol is a false god. All you mugs out there that have to have your heroes, you can have them. While you're at it, you can keep your lords of energy, finance, and thought on planet Earth. I'll keep the lord I've got now. That's how I feel.
An alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done told the news. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done made the news. Sheriff Joe Arpaio hates everything from Mexico. All light brown people have to go, 'cause Sheriff Joe done told you so. Illegal people, can't you see? Your mere existence is killing me. All taco eaters have to leave, 'cause Sheriff Joe is showing teeth. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done told the news. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done made the news. Sex crime happens, no big deal. Call Sheriff Joe and get the heel. The only thing this man can feel is a pain he really never wants to heal. The British say this land is mine, 'cause Washington and friends are fine. Killed native tribes all down the line, enslaving black people and all their kind. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done told the news. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done made the news. Joe says Obama comes from afar. The brother may as well have come from Mars. So he's eating cars, he's eating bars. Barack Obama from the planet Mars or Africa is just as bad. If he was from Great Britain, we'd all be glad. But as it is, we're all just mad. By Sheriff Joe, we've all been had. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done told the news. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. How do you know it's true? The sheriff done made the news. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. The president's an alien, maybe not Homo sapien. The sheriff done made the news. Get hip to what's happening in the world with the Dean J television show every Saturday at 5 p.m. on Access Fort Wayne 2, right before The Fort Report with News-Sentinel writer Kevin Leininger. The Dean J television show presents news, social commentary, music, and entertainment from Summit City Noise producer Dean Robinson, also known as Summit City music recording artist Dean J. Watch the Dean J television show every Saturday at 5 p.m. right before the Fort Report with News-Sentinel writer Kevin Leininger on Access Fort Wayne 2. Access Fort Wayne 2 is Comcast Channel 57 and Frontier Channel 27. Consult your local TV listings, Facebook, and YouTube for the Dean J Television Show.